Like some that say they're on there to make friends. Listen, bro, this is a dating site. To your point exactly. This is a dating site. I am not on here to make no friends.
Not looking for anything serious. Well, then go.
So then get off the dating site.
Go to the,
like,
grocery store and like
hey, go to a nightclub or something. But
go to Instagram. Hello and welcome back to the Buckeye Podcast. I'm Renee Nicole.
And I'm Lillian.
And we are back with just the two of us. We're going to get into a fun topic, communication, and the ways that men and women can better their communication. But as always, before we get started with that, Lillian, tell me, what was your butt God moment this week?
So my butt God moment this week has been something that I've been dealing with God with, and it's in regards to that waking me up at 3:25 every morning for like the last 3 weeks. And so finally, I was like, okay, I'm going to hear what he has to say. And so I started doing this new kind of check-in with myself where I like put my hand on my heart. I find my heartbeat, which I don't know if you guys, sometimes I can't find my heartbeat. I'm like, I know I'm alive, right? Where is my heartbeat? So it took me a while to find it, but I found my heartbeat. So you find your heartbeat and you focus in on the beating of your heart, your life, right? And just what does that feel like and what does that mean? And so for me, it was, I've been doing this therapy of myself, just like almost like a meditation kind of thing, because I want to get to the issues of the heart. There's a lot of things that I've been told, and from what I've been taught, is that we live from our experiences in our heart. That's what we live from, good, bad, or indifferent. That's where we live from. And so in my counseling, I'm learning that there are some things in my heart that I wasn't aware of that have caused me some pain or hindrance in some way. And so I've been like doing this like heart thing, waking up at 3 in the morning. And then finally this one day last week, I sat on the edge of my bed. I saw this guy. He said, like, if you keep getting up at this time every day, that means, God wants to talk to you. So, put your feet on the floor, get yourself grounded, and focus in on, feeling the floor underneath you. And so I was like, okay, this is what this guy said. I'm going to do it now. This 3 o'clock in the morning, I'm going to do it. So I did it. And prior to I went to sleep that night, I had done the heart thing. Like, okay, God, what are some of the things in my heart that are bothering me or that are holding me back? And I didn't really hear anything. So now it's 3 something in the morning and I put my feet, I'm focused. And I'm doing like, okay, what is in my heart? And I like heard God say, like, you don't trust yourself, and you have to learn to trust me so that you have to learn to trust yourself so that you can trust me. And I was like, what? And so then he just shared some other things about like experiences that I've had. And I was like, oh my gosh, so true. So true. In order for me to learn to trust God, I have to trust me, you know. And since doing that, I have had some things that I've done differently. I've repented for some things. He brought up a lot of like things that, sometimes relationships or experiences in your life, you just don't really pay too much attention to, but they can impact you, but you don't really realize they have. And so like some things had come up in some experiences that I've had that were sitting in my heart that I didn't know were sitting in my heart. And so I like went back through those experiences and repented and asked God for forgiveness and forgave whoever it was at the time during that experience that did something to me. And I feel so much better. I have like this new peace. I don't know how to explain it, but now I'm connecting more with God and doing this exercise with the heart. And now I just find myself every morning now, like really checking in, like, what are the things that you want me to be focusing on? And the thing I think is also because I'm taking this development class, which in school, and I had to watch the birth of a baby, like the development of a baby, and they go through the whole thing, gestation, all that kind of stuff, conception. And obviously the heart is the first organ that is basically created in us. And so it made sense to me that, like, I've been neglecting my heart, which is what God was basically saying. I've been neglecting my heart and not really giving it its full attention, and protecting it
Mm,
like I should be. And so it's just given me a more awareness now to know that, my heart is got some things that I got to work out, which is why that scripture says, and I think it's Proverbs, no, Psalms 139, the last verse, 22 or 23, I think it says, search my heart and know my anxious thoughts.
mm,
And so it's like, there's some things in my heart that I didn't know, but God showed me that I was really shocked about. I was like, really? Oh, wow, I did not realize that. So that was my but God. It's still, I think, we're still working in this but God experience because I'm still getting up at 3 in the morning. But it was definitely an experience. So
that is beautiful, first of all, because you've been doing the work. We've been doing our daily devotionals, and I know they've been hitting on the topics that we are going through, so working through that, and then the work that you're doing in your personal life, and to hear God show up for you in that way is just so, like, that hug, like you said before, that hug that you need, God gives to you and just affirms you. So that's, man, and that's so true. Like, we do that even with, like, love, learning to love people, and that's kind of what the topic we're talking about today. Learning to love people sometimes can be hard, and learning to receive love because we don't love ourselves, not in
right.
the way that we're supposed to, not with that unconditional love. Like, we put limits on our own love for ourselves even.
Mhm. And our
So
own self-love. Like we shared, I think in the last podcast, we talked about the high five habit with Mel Robbins, and that's all about self-love.
yeah. Hmm.
That habit that she's having people go through is self-love. Like, we've shared there, I would not never beat Renee down and when she's down and say, oh, you're not doing this and you're that, or no. But when I'm going through something, oh yeah, I'm my worst critic.
Hmm.
I'm so hard on myself, and that stuff stays in my heart. My heart remembers that, and from that is how I act with other people. Maybe it comes out, and in relationships that you've been in, and you keep that in there. So there was like some relationships that, not every relationship that I've that you're in is kind of relevant. I don't think you have ones that were like, they just stick out. They just seem like, like your first love, or something like that. And so there have been, like, in between that, there have been some other relationships that were, I would call, irrelevant, like
Hmm.
just part of my lessons or whatever. But I guess there was some pain from them that was sitting, that residue. It's like sometimes, that you think you clean something, but then there's a little bit of a residue. And if you leave a little bit of a residue, it can just build up, and then it could become a problem. And so
Hmm.
that was what he was showing with me. But it was so great because I heard him.
Hmm.
It's different. Like, I've said it before here on the podcast that I don't hear God that way. I read something. We're in this Bible study devotional that we're doing, and then it's like, oh, God's answering me through that,
Yeah.
or Renee and I will share a different podcast that we listen to, or things we're watching on, social media or whatever, and I'll hear that, and that's
Hmm.
God. But I literally heard God, like, that I picked my head up and was like,
Yeah.
what?
Hmm.
I was just shocked. And so I feel like I'm going in this new time with him, of learning to hear him now for myself, because I think sometimes, and I had admitted it to him that day, that, and he had told me that you rely too much on other things to speak to me from him. So instead of spending the time with him to say, here's my petition, this is my issue, God, what do you have to say? I would just like look to the other, like maybe a podcast to answer that already. Like, see, what are they discussing? Maybe they got something for me. And so, like, almost making them the lowercase God, like, and so I had to repent for that, because I was like, you're right, I'm not giving you the right amount of time to respond to me.
Mm.
And so doing that exercise that I did last week, it was just this whole being one with my body and just really feeling everything. And they say that there's something between those hours of 3 and 5 where, it's very spiritual. You can really hear God speak very clearly at that time, maybe because you're half asleep. But it was really interesting. But anyway, so what was your buck up moment, Renee?
So as I've shared on the podcast, I've been trusting God for just purpose, career, just, I'm in like, I feel like a shifting season, and it's a new season, and we've talked about that, and I really feel like it is a new season in my life. And so I really, just because I am, going back to work soon, and more of what I was steering away from is more of a traditional work setting, or more of a traditional job. However, God has shown me even like the lessons that I'm learning there, and the tools that I'm learning that are applying towards what I want to do career wise. Um, so that's a buck eye, but also, still getting opportunities within what I want to do. So I shared with Lillian how just, randomly my cousin had referred me for just a week gig for a show. It's a Netflix show that's being taped in DC. It's actually being produced by Barack and Michelle's new.
Oh, that's so cool.
I just learned that
I
today.
didn't know
Their
that.
new production company. I just learned that today. Their new production company, which I didn't even know they had.
Yeah.
So yeah, so it's exciting in that God is showing me that, look, your dreams, your visions, I place them inside of you. I have not forgotten them, and you are still going to do those things that ensure that you do not give up on them, because it's so easy. I'm so grateful that God's always strategically placed me in places that require me to still, or like pull me to still use my creativity. In
Mhm.
LA, there's so many people who are at a regular job, but still, okay, let's meet together, let's have a writing session. So I had so many like writers around me, and had a podcast there, and I was in Atlanta, and that's that same type of vibe that, with creativity and entertainment. So God just always places me in the position to show me that this is something that I've called you to do.
Amen.
Don't lose sight of your dreams and your visions. Keep on working towards them, and use the tools that you're using in these places that can put some money in your pocket
Right.
to later on apply towards that career and those visions. So yeah, I'm grateful God is
Amen.
good. That's my but God moment.
Amen.
And yeah, we talked a little bit about how what we wanted to talk about today is just about communication. I was sharing with Lillian, I was watching, there is a Christian comedian. I don't know if he calls himself a Christian comedian, but he's like a clean comedian, Kev on Stage. And he and his wife, Melissa, have a podcast called The Love Hour. And they talk a lot about relationships. They've been together since they were in high school. And now they're big on ownership. They're like my model between like them and Issa Rae in terms of like ownership of your content, creating your own, and like not waiting for the networks to give you the green light. So that's pretty much what they've done. They've created so much content, and now they have an app, streaming service, they're calling it now. And basically, they create a lot of content and they put it on the streaming service. And one of the shows that they created, Melissa, his wife, created, is called Love on Stage. And so it's a dating show. And she's basically trying to help it starts out with 3 women that she selects out of like hundreds of women that submitted, that she's trying to help find love. And I think it's a 27-year-old woman, a 42-year-old, and a 36-year-old. And they all have different backgrounds, different experiences, but they all have their stuff together. They're all like, I'm ready for that next step in life. And, it's just so hard. And then you get to the men candidates. And it's just so disturbing to watch, like being as a single woman who's like aspiring to be married and aspiring for a relationship, seeing what's out there and seeing like this big pool of women. It was so hard for her to narrow down the women, but this pool of men, and she's, when it comes to the men, so her and like her female, there's 2 other females that they work together to narrow down the women to get it to 3. And now they're trying to match 3 men to these 3 women and put them on these virtual dates. So she has her husband, another guy, I don't know what he does, and then there's a female, and they're all helping her pick the men. And even the guys, even her husband and this man are like, this man ain't a good fit for none of these women. This man ain't a good fit for none of these women. Like, this man ain't a good fit for none of these women. Like, he's not ready. And it's just like, this is what we are dealing with, ladies. Like, this is why it's so hard. And this is why so many of us are at a stage in life where we're like, is it going to happen? We're still hopeful and we still have faith, but it's just like the pool of men is very slim. And, and a lot of the men even that are on the show are like, were submitted by a friend. Like, they didn't even want to do it for themselves. And I feel like that's part of this like stigma that comes with men are like, I feel like men since a young age are not, they're taught not to aspire towards something serious, they're taught to just have sex, have fun, but not to like think long term. Whereas women, we're talking about, like, we play with baby dolls as kids, like we're thinking about motherhood, we're thinking about, being a wife as children. Whereas men, that's not what they're taught. It's not ingrained in them like it is in us. So it gets to a point where now you have this grown man in his 30s, 40s, 50s even, who still is trying to hold on to that childhood dream of just going out and sowing his royal oats or whatever and having a good time, and can't even articulate what he wants in a woman, can't even articulate, yes, I do want to get married and this is why, and I'm not to say there's not good men out there, but I think it starts with how we train our young men and what we teach them growing up, and learning to talk to them and with them so they can then in turn learn how to talk to a woman, and that was one of the major issues too. Melissa, at the end of one of the shows, she was like, men, take your shot, or she said something like, men, approach women. On behalf of single women, I'm asking you just to approach her, because I think that's one of the major issues now is the lack of communication, because we have these, we don't have to communicate so much. And so men don't even want to shoot their shot, and I understand the fear of rejection, the fear of, whatever, but things have just like transformed in a way in the dating world to me that is just like crazy. But I think if we can get to the root of our communication issues, then maybe we can have some hope. And then maybe we can actually like aspire for something that can be real when it comes to marriage and long-term relationship.
I think it goes even further than that. I think, you made a point where they had so many great women. They didn't have a lot of men. Women, we do the work that's required for us to be better in our next relationships. Maybe it's maternal, I don't know, but like we are not afraid to do the work, whereas men, women, we're feelings, right? We're into feelings and emotions and stuff, and men, they're not taught that. That's just not part of their DNA. It doesn't, I think, I don't know if it's not part of their DNA. Listen, we all have it.
Yeah.
What it is they're just not taught that, because the stigma is that men should not cry, men should not feel, or men don't feel, men don't cry, when that's just not true. If it was true, God wouldn't have given them tear ducts. They have the same emotional system that we do. It's just the way that they're taught. They're conditioned to not feel. They're
Yeah.
conditioned to not cry. Suck it up. Don't cry. Don't, And so, and men these days, especially these guys, because it is tough this day and stuff, fall into this, I'm emotionally unavailable. And that's what they'll start to say. I've had a few, when you start calling them out on stuff, I'm emotionally unavailable, which it's just, I'm sorry, it's a crock of.
Yeah, it's an excuse to not deal with your emotion.
Yeah, it's an excuse to not deal with your emotions, and it's not right. And I'm not going to accept it. Get help, do the work that you need to do. I've done the work that I need to do. And I know we've talked about it before, was like, what happens is you get with these men. Thank God there's this show that's actually fielding through the prerequisites and making sure train wrecks of relationships don't happen, because the women are whole and they, have done their work and done their stuff. And then they go and meet a guy. If it wasn't for this show, on this show, I'm just saying, they meet a guy and he manipulates, or he breaks them down because of his own trauma, because of his own wounds that he has, that he's not addressed, and his baggage that he's carrying. Women are not the only ones that have baggage. Right. Anyone that's been in a relationship has baggage if you don't do the work. Problem is, like you said, men, the problem is there's way too many women. So it's for men, it's their field day. It's them being a kid in a candy shop.
Options.
They can just go out there and pick. If you don't want to accept them, if you don't want to deal with their unemotionally available, somebody else will. And so they go off and they deal with, and they do damage to someone else. And it's like, I don't know. I know for me with this dating stuff, the whole social media dating stuff is very hard, because they're so into wanting pictures. I just had this happen to me a few weeks ago, and I actually got off social media dating because I can't stand it. I just like, I'm not ready. Like, I'm not ready. But like asking me for pictures after I already have a profile that I put like maybe 6 different pictures, not just from here up, full, like I'm out, hanging out, whatever, and still gonna ask me for pictures. And I ignore the message one time. Second time sends another one because he wants to add me to his contacts, because now we're chatting off of the app, because I'm really bad with those things. I'm really bad with getting into the app. Yeah. So, okay, I give you my number. It's not a big deal. And so he's like, well, I want to add you to my, I'm like, listen, bro, we are not on no level that I need to be saved in your phone, because you are not saved in my phone. Okay.
You definitely don't need a profile picture.
Definitely don't need a profile picture. I definitely don't want, this is not. And so I ignored it. And then he was asking for my Instagram, and I ignored it. And then I wound up just responding, because I ignored it because I was bothered. Why are you so pressed? And not one time in between those messages had he really asked about me.
Right.
Who am I? What do I like to do? What have I been up to? What has my experience been on this, dating, whatever, nothing. So I had to wait a few days to calm. And then he sent another message, and I just nicely, I cleared the message with my son to make sure it wasn't very mean, because my son is sensitive like that, so he'll pick up on it. And he was like, no, Mom, he deserves to hear this. Like, I just let him know, like, it's really bothersome that you keep asking me about pictures. And yeah, I'm not giving you any. You've got 6 on my profile that you could choose from. Well, I'm just afraid of being catfished. Well, then you know what? You've not one time, we both have iPhones. You know how you can tell when someone else has an iPhone versus an Android? We both have iPhones. You could have FaceTimed me.
Because honestly, I can still catfish you by sending you photos.
Right.
The only way that you can actually confirm that it's me is if we FaceTime or see each other.
FaceTime with me. There's no, and so it was just like, I just don't have the time for that's where I get frustrated. I just don't have the time for the BS when it comes to this.
Yeah.
Because men, they talk this on their profile, but yet you are doing a whole other this on the outside, and they just
I
need to really grow
wonder,
up.
yeah, because I've only tried Hinge. I don't know how other sites are, or if there's some that are more. I know there's like elite
Girl,
sites that are supposed to be more serious, but it's like I feel like when we get on these things, like we're not in the business of just like wasting time,
I'm not
doing this. Like I'm qualifying you, like if I'm
right.
taking the time to create a profile on a dating app, that means my intentions are to date someone. Like my intentions are to see where this can go, like I'm not just on here like looking for a free meal
Oh,
or,
like some that say they're on there to make friends. Listen, bro, this is a dating site. To your point, exactly. This is a dating site. I am not on here to make no friends with
not looking
any.
for anything serious. Well, then
Well, then get off the dating site.
go to the
Like,
grocery store and like
hey, go to a nightclub
go
or
somewhere
something,
else.
but
Go to Instagram,
go to
like go to
Instagram, right?
that,
Or Snapchat or something, But I've been on Match. I've been on, I think Bumble is one. I've been on Christian dating, which by the way was the worst one for me because there was so many devils on there. It was not even funny.
I got
But
a Christian Mingle. I got on that for
Christian
like
Mingle,
a few
that one.
hours, and the pickings were just so bad. I got off.
And then the pickings are so bad. Like I'm really, I mean, I talked to my counselor about this. He's like, you're just not ready yet. I'm like, good. I'm glad we know that I'm not ready. When I'm ready, I will hire me a matchmaker.
Right.
Like if God, like, decides to bring him through FedEx in a box or something and I add water. But I just don't have the time for it. Like people.
Yeah.
But it is men, they don't have to work. They have the excuse because if I don't accept him, she's gonna accept him.
But I just want to know, when did the switch happen? Because it wasn't always this way, And I think social
When did
media definitely plays a big role in it.
mm,
I think social media plays a big role in it because women are now social media, and then like women evolving, because women now are not just like settling at a young age for a man. Like we are deciding we want to do career first, or we want to make sure we want to really qualify this man. And when he's not qualified, then we move on. Whereas I think maybe back in the day, people got married younger,
oh
people were
yeah.
more willing to like look past certain flaws. They were more concerned, can he provide? Can he, whatever. But now I think we are finding fulfillment in ourselves and in our jobs and in our,
Mhm.
career. And so when we see, something that isn't, measuring up to what we want, then we're just like, no, I'm good. I'll be single. And then we get to a point where we feel like, okay, is he out there? And I think too, with men not approaching us, I think too, it is the social media, just because, and I hate giving social media so much credit, but I feel like women are seeing so many people are just wanting something that they see on Instagram.
Mhm.
Like we're seeing so many, of the like pregnancy photos, these like glamorous, like
Mhm.
gender reveals, and we're seeing these glamorous proposals, and it kind of just that void, kind of gets a little like, oh man, I want that. And so then
So that envy. So that's envy then, right? So it's
it can
somehow it's a
be
form of
it can
envy.
be envy, or it could just be, like I don't have that. Like it's a strong desire. And
Mhm.
so I think that is causing women to like, I gotta do whatever I gotta do. And now women are stepping up and shooting their shot, at men. And now men are, they just got it easy because like you said, there's so much more. There's more women, to choose from than
Mhm.
there are men. And so they're like, I'll just wait for her to shoot her shot. I can always go to here. I can always go this direction.
But that's the thing. They have more options.
Exactly. But
We
like
don't.
I've never, I think the question I had about the switch is like, I've never had to be in a position where I had to shoot my shot at a guy. But I've talked to a lot of men.
I've never had to do that.
I've had talked to a lot of men now that they want that. Like they want a woman to shoot their shot at them. And
No,
I'm
I'm
thinking
not shooting
that's
my shot. I'm
backwards
not
to me.
proposing to you. I'm not proposing to you. I'm not shooting my shot. Like, I'm very old school in that manner. Like, you need to come for me. So I don't chase no one. So we'll have a few chats on social media. If you don't respond, bro, I'm not responding.
Mhm,
Like, period.
mhm.
You know, that's conversation works back. I'm not, you're not going to respond after a few days. I'm not going to respond after a few days. Then
Right.
I just delete you and then move on,
Yeah. Yeah.
and I'm just old school in that way. I've never, and this is probably one of the things that has bothered me. Like when I was growing up, I didn't have this problem.
That's what I'm
I
saying.
never thought that I would be
Things switch.
single
Things
in
it's
my
not,
40s.
it's not you. It's the way of the world now.
But it's funny because I do think part of it has to be me and my lifestyle. My lifestyle has switched as well.
Mhm.
So I'm not a party girl. I
Yeah.
don't drink. So I'm not in those environments
And you're
either.
not interested in the same kind of guy you may have been before.
Oh, heck no. No,
Exactly. Because
no.
that's I
So
know that's for me too. Because I'm like I have fun dating, and I think I gave more leeway to men before because I wasn't looking for anything serious. But now that I'm in a position where if you're approaching me, I'm qualifying you for something long term or for something serious, then like the way that I'm not just giving anybody my number anymore. I'm not just like, entertaining anyone anymore because of the fact that I want something more concrete. So that definitely plays a big role in it. I think that that's a big difference. Whereas if we had been when we were younger, like, oh, he's fun, I'll stick with him, then maybe,
yeah.
we wouldn't be in the position we're in now. But just
Now I
I
just
think our requirements have changed.
our requirements have changed, and I think we're also very comfortable with who we are and confident with who we are. So like, yeah, a lot of women back in the day were running to the altar, right? It was this whole Marissa Tomei from My Cousin Vinny, my biological clock is ticking, kind of thing. Have to have my kids by a certain time.
Mhm.
I kind of have jumped over that because I had my kid young. So for me, it's more like, what's my point now? Right? I'm
Right,
not having
rushing.
any more kids.
Right.
Right. So I'm not having any more kids. And I was when I was raising my son, I had a co-parent relationship. And so I didn't want my son to like maybe have that stepfather thing because I didn't want to take away from his father
Mm.
relationship, his natural father. So it just worked out that way. But and now women are like, well, back then I think we were more afraid of being alone. And I think now we're really not afraid. I'm not afraid of being alone. I'm okay because I know that I've been taking care of me by the grace of God. Does it get a little lonely sometimes? Because sometimes maybe I want to go hang out with people or someone or, like watch a movie, or not with just my girlfriends, but you know what I mean? Like just have that companionship kind of thing. Um, and for me, it's just a little different because of because of the way that I am not in that lifestyle anymore. I also used to believe in being friends with guys and not having a problem, but that became a problem for me when guys start taking my friendship and turning it into in their brains a full-on relationship of infatuation. And it was like, what? No, so I had to cut off anyone that was of the male gender and couldn't be my friend because I'm going in this thinking we're friends. Meanwhile, you are thinking other things and only trying to be with me. And so I've pulled back from that thing as well. And so it's just, I find it's really hard when you are a Christian woman and you're trying to date, especially in the church, or not even in the church, but in the church, it's hard too. I don't want to,
It's
first of all, date anybody that goes to my church.
as a
No.
Christian woman, it's hard to find a man that has the same morals as you, even if he says he's Christian. And that was one of the issues on the shows. Like all the women had this standard of like, Jesus is my best friend. I need you to hear
Right.
from him. I need you to talk to him. And
Right.
this is most of the people that follow them, Melissa and Kevin on stage, are Christians because they are, and they talk about
Right.
it a lot. But even the men that were submitted, they were like, oh, I'm not religious, I believe in God.
Mhm.
And it's like, that's been for me
That's
a
a big
big
thing.
issue with guys that I meet. It's like that they don't have that relationship. A
And
lot of
it's
them
hard.
say they believe in God, they say they're Christian, but they don't have relationship. And so that's a big barrier for women. We already have that makes the pool this much smaller.
Yep.
So
But also, it's like for me, I remember like thinking one time, like, yeah, you have to have a relationship with God, and it has to be a strong relationship with God. Like he needs to be like how God is like my homeboy. He needs to be your homeboy. Like I need to know that if I'm going through something,
you're
like
gonna
I can
fast
call
and
on you and you're
pray
gonna
and
pray, you're gonna fast, you're gonna worship. Um, and I don't find too many. I don't find too many like that. And I did meet this one guy who he was like that, and it really touched my spirit. But at the time and where I was in my timing wasn't right. But God, I think, did that to show me potential that it's out there,
yeah.
that my timing wasn't right. But like my whole thing is I've been doing this thing, my walk with Jesus, my praying and everything by myself for a while.
Yeah.
And if we have to be equally yoked, bro, like I'm not hooking myself as the speed horse that I am to a mule. Sorry, bro. Like I'm not doing it. Because when I'm ready to take off, I'm gonna be dragging you.
Yeah. And as a
And
Christian, we believe that he is supposed to be the head,
he's
right?
supposed to lead,
We're
right? I'm
supposed to be
supposed to
able to
submit,
submit. How can
right?
I do that if you're not submitted to the Father? What am
Right.
I submitting to?
But this is the reason why me and my mother were talking about this the other day. Was like, I don't know why this concept of thinking of like women are better managing the finances than men
Mm,
in the house.
mm.
I don't know how that came about and how it's just, I think women have gotten into roles that they
Had to.
have had to,
Yeah.
but it's also the control. As women, we are controlling beings. Some
Mm.
of us control more than others. And so it's like, you got to let your husband do what he needs to do. And so that submissive part, that's where that submissive part comes in. He's got to be the one to lead us in prayer. If you're going to constantly be leading prayers and planning the calendar of where you're going and what you're going to be doing, what's the point of having him?
Mm.
Besides what, his paycheck? You know
Mm.
what I mean? Like, I don't understand. So I think for where we are now as women, some of us, me, I can say, what's the point? I have less aggravation in my life and I get up when I want to get up. I make the food that I want to eat. I watch the TV shows that I want to watch the TV shows. Like I'm not forced to do things because like in a relationship, you have to like conform. You
Yeah.
have to compromise, and I don't watch a lot of TV. I prefer sometimes to just be like read a book or listen to a podcast or listen to a book, where I found like when I was in relationships, like I have to sit down and like watch Chicago PD or something. And I'm like, that ain't what, like, I don't even want to watch this show. Like, this ain't my show, or things that like I'm getting ready to go visit my son. And I know like when he and I are together, like he likes to watch certain things. And I'm just like, I don't really want to watch this, but okay. Or I like to watch, like when I do watch my TV shows, I make sure it's extra ratchet. And so he's like, I ain't trying to watch this Beverly Hills or Housewives, nothing. So it's just that compromising thing. And I'm just so used to now like getting in my car, going where I want to go. Don't have to answer to anyone. But it does like that double-edged sword. Sometimes I miss, you know, the male conversations. I will say that I do miss the male conversations because when I did have male friends, we'd have some really in-depth conversations.
And that's so important, because I think that's why I'm such an advocate for men and women having those type of relationships and communicating. I also agree. I don't think most men, especially if it's an attractive woman or woman they're attracted to, I don't think men can be friends with women in most
Yeah.
instances. But I think that those type of conversations are so important because we operate so differently, like we
Mhm.
think differently, we move differently. So when we're able to have those type of conversations, we can get a better understanding of each other. But
That, yeah,
go ahead.
that really benefited me when I was
Yeah.
before I was saved. It really benefited me when I did have those relationships because I had some male whore type friends,
Mhm.
and they would let me know just by watching them and seeing how they worked as players and stuff like,
Oh,
oh,
he's up to no
got your
good.
card, I'm taking notes,
Hmm.
taking notes.
Hmm.
So when another guy would come to me, I would be able to know. I remember I had this one friend, he and I would go to clubs, and he's a good looking guy. I'm a pretty good looking girl. And we would walk in together and people would think that we're couples. And I would be like, no, we're not couples. Like, make sure you go on the other side of the club and I'm gonna stay over here and we'll leave because we always would leave like when the club would shut down, like 4 or 5 in the morning or whatever. We'll meet up. There was one night we went out and there was these girls that were interested in him and they like approached me thinking like he was cheating on me, you know? And they were like, your man is trying to, hit on me or whatever. And I was like, my man? I don't have no man. What are you talking about? They were like, that guy. And I was like, oh no, he's go ahead, go knock yourself out. No, he is not my man. Do not be spreading that around here, please. You know. But I enjoyed, and then he and I afterwards we would go out, we'd go out to eat at a diner or something, and we would just like tell different stories of like the people that we met, and he would give me pointers and I would give him pointers, and I miss that in that kind of conversation way. But what happened from that relationship was he eventually started getting feelings.
Mhm.
And so, it's hard to for them to separate. Like I could separate it. For me, it's like once I'm turned off, like with the guy that I had to tell him about no pictures, you're not getting nothing, like this is not working for me. I had to tell him flat out, like this is not working for me.
Mhm.
Word of advice, next time lead with some more questions, get to know the person before you start, haggling them for pictures. And so he had to say, can we start over? And I
Oh.
was like, no. Mm-mm. Once the oven is turned off for me, it's off. If you that's to he turned me off completely. He just
Mhm.
turned me off, and it was like, no. Mm-mm. And he tried again the next day, like, can we start over
It sounded
today? And
like
I was like,
he heard you and he wanted to like, okay, I went about this wrong. Because I feel
well,
like,
try someone else.
yeah, you're gonna be who you are, that's who you are, then I can't change you. But you made a comment and I wanted to ask you about that because you said, because I had a friend who I've heard said the same thing, and she has a child, and like she's like, I just rather wait until he's grown
Yeah.
to like to seriously date again. And I was like, well, that's not fair to you. That's how I felt in the situation. Do you, even now looking back, do you feel like, do you feel like that was the right decision, or do you like
Yeah,
regret
I
that at
mean,
all?
sometimes yeah, I think it was the right decision. I mean, at the time, I think now that I look back, obviously, I don't think I had any real winners to
Yeah.
really settle down with. But I think it also was part of me selfishly, right? If I'm really being transparent, I
Hmm.
didn't want my son to have nobody to him to call stepmommy either,
Yeah.
you know? So maybe it was that too,
Right.
So I felt like if I kept my side of the street clean, you
He'll
know,
be the same. Yeah.
keep his side of the street clean, but it is not fair. But I did want my son to see healthy relationships. Um, but yeah, because I grew up with my mom and dad, like you grew up with your mom and dad. It's very hard when you grow up in that mom and dad stable kind of environment to then you don't have that now. Like you're in a relationship and that's not how it is with your child. it was very hard for me. I would always try to want to create this nucleus of a family, kind of, you know, but the reality is that we were never married, and that's not how it was. And so, you know, it was just really hard. I always would try to like make mommy and daddy be there for the plays, make, you know, mommy and daddy be there for the birthdays, make mommy and daddy, you know, have times with him. Um, but yeah.
Mhm.
And I appreciated his relationship, and I still appreciate his relationship with his father.
Yeah, yeah,
But
yeah.
I guess it is not fair. I think it's unfair when people stay together just for the kid,
Oh yeah. Because even,
because that
you
is
know,
unhealthy.
I think that, and when you're a parent, you're just doing what you think is best and what you feel is right, or whatever. But I think that that can be just as much, if not more, damaging at times, because I know for me, you know, even growing up in a two parent household, I just was like, I'm not getting married. If this is like, it just didn't look like something that was aspirational to me, you know, just because you're together.
Wait,
I mean, like it's
so
the,
to your point, before you go even further, to your point, so do you think that because you've had some of those thoughts, because I've had that thought too with my parents, because my parents, they were odd couple, you know,
Mhm,
um, arguing a lot. Like this, sometimes they would just argue a lot. And I would just be like, that is not like,
mhm,
this is not all my children kind of love that I see on the state in the TVs, you know
mhm.
what I mean? But I now sometimes think that because I started saying that when I was younger, it's why I am single now.
I
You
think
think
I
that?
never have been able to be honest with myself in that I have wanted marriage because of that comment. I think I almost took pride in saying I don't want to get married. I even had a moment, there was a moment when I was like, I don't want to get married, I don't want to have kids. Like I said that for years,
I
you know.
remember you saying you don't want to have kids for years. I remember, yeah, just, yeah, I
I
remember
said
that.
that for years, and I think deep down I knew I did, but I just found
Mm.
comfort and protection in saying that, you know. I think that I did have a hard time believing that marriages were good, you know, because
Mhm.
honestly, I didn't feel like, even in like other people's marriages, I didn't feel like they were really as great as they made them out to be, you know.
Right,
And so I was just like, why put myself through that? I did
right.
think that. And I did think that, you know, raising kids just seems like a burden, a challenging. And I
Hmm.
did think those things. And honestly, I was like, why bring a child into this crazy world? Like this world is a
Hmm.
mess.
Hmm.
Like I thought all those things, but I know deep down I've always had the dream of getting married. You know, I know deep down I've always had the dream of being a mother. I just like, I had pride, you know, in saying that I didn't, you know, because I could see the flaws of it. I could see the cons of those things. So I'm like, the smarter choice is not to get married. The smarter choice is not to have children. But even though deep down I wanted it, you know.
So it's funny you say that, because I know, like, for me, I can remember saying to myself I didn't want to get married when I was a little girl
Mhm.
because of the things that I saw within my own family. And because I'm of mixed race, my mom, I feel she gave up her family to be with my dad because I was
Yes,
raised by my
yes.
father's family. And so I remember, I can see it clear as if it was yesterday. We were in like the stormtrooper backyard jungle gym that my cousin had in her house in Long Island, and we were playing. And I remember my cousin, she used to say some mean things to me. She used to tell me I was adopted. She'd tell me all crazy kinds of things. I love her to death, but she would, yeah, because I, you know, I'm dark haired. I'm darker complexion. Everybody in my father's side of the family is blonde hair or, you know, light skin. Anyway, so she had said to me that I, you know, if something happened to my parents, that I would never see her or my family, like my grandmother or anything, because my mom made me godchild to her sister, who I love, my godmother, I love her. But as a kid growing up, that family was very foreign to me because they didn't speak, first of all, the language that I spoke. Even
Mhm.
though my godmother, she spoke a little bit out of all of them, she spoke the most compared to my mother. But it was a different cult. It was a different, yeah, it was a different culture and a different way of when we were in their home. It was always very different, you know, and I knew what it was to live with my father's side of the family and just, you know, and so I remember saying like, I'm never going to get married
Mhm.
because I don't want to give up my family.
Yeah.
And so I think that has stuck with me
Yeah.
all these years, you
Mhm.
know, and it's part of my heart therapy. It's one of the things that has come up for me. And like you said, like we say things to ourselves, I think in the moment,
Mhm.
and I think we don't realize the power of the words that we're
Yeah.
saying and the declarations that they're making. Because it's like, you know, sometimes I don't know about you, but sometimes I'll be like, I'm so tired, but I'm really not tired. But because I'm so used to saying it, I've been conditioned to saying it for so long that, you know, and so maybe it's the same thing with like, I don't want to get married.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I
I
look at
think I think I wanted to believe that though, you know, like I think it was something that I wanted to feel or a way that I wanted to be, and it wasn't really how I was. It wasn't really how I was feeling. Um, or at least not like in totality. You know, I knew that deep down, eventually I wanted to, but I think that like you said, life and death is in the power of the tongue. I do believe that there's power in it, but I also think that one of the things that I'm really like testing myself in everything that I do is my heart posture, and like
mm,
why do I even now? Why do you want to get married? You know, like what
right.
is the reason, and is your heart in the right place in that reasoning? You know, and so like I even now I try to train myself to think, well, it's because when two are together, we can accomplish a greater purpose. But no, you want somebody, you be lonely sometimes and you want that
Yeah.
companionship, and you know, and a part of it too, I think down the line, because for me, like you, I'm very close to my family. And sometimes I think like, well, if I get married, I'm not going to be able to be this close to them. I'm not going to be able to be around them all the time and like
Right.
do the things that I'm able to with them that I do now. And so sometimes that makes me like, oh, I want to get married. And then on the other side of that, then I'm like, but they're not going to be here forever, you know? And so
Right.
then you start thinking that, then who am I going to have? And I think that's another
Right.
reason that I start thinking, oh, I got to get married. I want to be alone, you know? And so, man, it's a lot of back and
So
forth for me.
do you think also like when you're doing your heart postures checking, I don't know about you, but sometimes, you know, you see the Jeannie Mai stories, right? Or the Israel or the Adrienne Houghton, or, you know, Issa Rae, you know, her beautiful wedding over the summer. You know what I'm saying? You hear these stories.
Hmm.
What do you, I admit, I will sit here and say, man, when is mine coming? You know,
Oh
when
yeah.
is my guy, you know, gonna show up? Is he gonna show up? And I want that relate. So that envious part that I talked about earlier, like I am envious of that. I want
Mm.
that,
Yeah.
you know.
I don't feel like I feel that. I think I get more envious when it's like, and not even I don't know. I don't feel like I feel that in that instance. Maybe sometimes if it's someone I know that, you know, but even then I don't feel like I do. But I do feel hope when I see like a Jeannie Mai, or
Mm,
like I was this young lady I was sharing with you earlier, who's 39 and just had her first child. Like
right.
that makes me feel a little more hopeful. Like, because there were moments where I was just like, okay, girl, you about to be 35. That biological clock is ticking. Da 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 da. But that makes me feel like, okay, it can happen, and it's happening more at a later
Oh
age.
yeah.
You take care of
Yeah.
yourself, you know, like
Mhm.
your body is capable, you know, of having a child, and you know, at this time in your life. So I think that that is the thing that is starting to make me too, because I like get excited when I see that now more so. I get more excited when I see like people like in their 40s getting married, or like Jeannie
Yeah,
Mai's
me
like
too.
41, 42, I think, and she's
Hmm.
pregnant. And so that makes me feel like, okay, it's not just me, it's possible.
I mean, I get hopeful. I mean, that's why I said like I have had guys come into my life, and I think their purpose was to show me. the
Mhm.
potential, to show
Yeah.
me there's hope, not to give up on, but it is sometimes a little like,
When is it gonna be my turn? I get
right.
it.
Like the only time I ever want a microwave experience, you
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
But, as I'm going through my own counseling and stuff, it's like my counselor, he's like, he told me last week, he's like, you're just not ready. He's like, you're not ready. There's still things that you have to work through. And, it is my mind in that microwave, like, well, when am I going to be ready? Because if we keep
Yeah.
going, it's like you keep pulling up stuff and I'm just like, I am done with
You
this,
tangling me up more and
You're
more.
just
Yeah.
right. Yeah, you're just holding me up, but I I don't know. Sometimes I am encouraged to see that, there is love out there. I had listened to the Jeannie Mai announce her pregnancy, and they had a little discussion about, because I thought it right away. I said, oh, I wonder how Adrian must feel.
I was thinking that too.
And they talked about it. They
Did
talked about it. Yeah, they actually talked about it because Jeannie said that Garcelle had said that she thought, oh man, wonder how Adrian's going to feel because she's been trying for so long and it hasn't happened. And here is Jeannie Mai, who for
didn't even
years
want
had been
kids.
saying she doesn't want to get married and didn't want to have kids anymore. And she didn't
Right.
want to have kids.
Mm-hmm.
And so they talked about it, and Adrian said, like she's super happy for her, and she's not, and Jeannie was like, Adrian, it was like my number one supporter from the time that, I let her know. And so, I don't know, just sometimes I'm just like, okay, well, it'll happen when
Yeah.
it's supposed to happen. That's what Adrian said. If it's supposed to happen for her,
Mm-hmm.
it'll happen for her.
Yeah.
Everything is in God's timing. And when things are supposed to be, they're supposed to be. And I think the same thing with relationships. The problem is sometimes you got to keep weeding through, to find the gem.
And God knows us,
Yeah,
like
he
He
knows
knows
us.
us better than we know ourselves, and He knows when we're not ready. As much
Yeah.
as we think that we are. Like I even think with Adrian's story, as much as and I, pray for her because I know that had to be rough. Even if she,
Yeah.
at some point, I'm sure she felt a little bit
I'm
of
sure it's
being with
stung
her.
a little bit.
But like all the things that she's doing and accomplishing right now, like
She's
she's
busy.
doing like purpose work. Like these, I
Right.
told you about how that gospel album, if it wasn't for her, Israel would have stopped recording. And that gospel album has blessed my life. So like the purpose work that she's doing right now, like God's like, you don't got time for that right now, and it's not to
Right.
say that it won't happen or that it will happen, whatever. But same with us, like God knows like that we have work to do on ourselves, we have
Mm-hmm.
work to do in our careers or in our purpose that, maybe we wouldn't be as focused on if we had a special someone in our life.
100%. 100%. I agree with that. That's exactly what I agree. I know when I was talking about earlier, compromising, watching TV shows,
Yeah.
I would not have been able to crank out the stuff that I've cranked out, or even being in school right now.
Mm-hmm.
I would feel bad. I would feel bad that I'm not spending time doing the things that, like this weekend, I didn't really go out. I was working on schoolwork all day. And then like, I think on Saturday, I was like, man, it's so beautiful. It's like going to be 5 o'clock. I've been in the house all day, like my whole weekends. And
When
then
I
I
think
decided to go
about
out.
the amount of time I used to spend just laid up, like
Right.
with a boo and like watching movies, I'm like, I couldn't imagine doing that now. Like I would just feel like
Right.
I'm wasting so much time.
Exactly. You're
you
wasting
know?
time. You could be doing so much more, like you wouldn't have the businesses that you have. We wouldn't have the residual incomes that we have coming in, that passive income coming in, you know. So there's always been like someone's always said to me, like, God knows what you need and he knows who he has for you.
Mm-hmm.
Get busy doing the things that God wants you to do. And when the time is right, he will
Mm-hmm.
make that person come forward.
Mm-hmm.
So, to my point, like I have a lot of things that I'm working on within myself that honestly, if I was in a relate, I would not be able to do the things that I am able to do.
Yeah.
And so then I look at what's more important. Like this is very important for me to be in school to get my degree.
Yeah.
Super important. This is very important for me to show up here on this podcast and do the podcast and do my work on my 9 to 5 and then have my side hustles that I have running. Very important to me.
And if
Plus,
you in a relationship, spending time with him would be very important to you. And balancing all of those things would be nearly impossible.
it'd be totally impossible. Plus, like the energy of arguments and disagreements and how that like throws you off course, it pulls you away from your creativity. Then we're women who still get our 28 cycle, and that's, I am of the age of, I'm in perimenopause. I'm on the, we're about to start moving into the real deal menopause. And my body's going through things. I really just don't have the time for him.
Yeah.
You know what? That's okay.
That's okay.
That's okay. I'm okay with that now. There was a time in my life when I wouldn't have been okay with that.
Yeah.
I would have been so probably, sad or beat down or whatever. But right now, I have no time to be worrying about anything else.
That's one thing I can say that I'm truly grateful for, is that I didn't rush into anything when I was younger, because I'm at such a place now of security and like not dependent. Like there were times where would have been in relationships and been almost dependent on that person for my happiness, or like allow them to, like you say, impact my emotions in such a way where I couldn't even function. I couldn't even, get through the day. And I couldn't even see that for myself now. Like I couldn't see myself wanting to spend every hour of the day with one person. Like I couldn't see myself thinking that way now, So I'm so grateful to God that God like allowed me to spend this time to myself and get to know myself and grow, so that wouldn't be the foundation of the relationship that I'm in,
That's why a lot of women are like where we are.
Yeah.
That's why a lot of women are not.
I feel like that was part of like a natural progression. That's what confuses me in the difference between men and women. Like
that's part of the
I don't feel like that was something I necessarily sought out, I feel like it was just like, I'm grown now. And I feel like they do say women mature faster than men. But it's like at some point I feel like men gotta be like, you grown, and like,
why should they?
I can communicate.
There are women that are accepting them as, there are in Spanish culture, women that baby the boys. Okay. They come from mamas that are babying them, and no woman, and they are looking for their mamas, which is said in psychology. They say that we're looking for our daddies, as girls. You will marry your father. Like, I am not marrying my father. Like, that's not happening, But it is to your point earlier when you were saying, like, how come women? It's because we have gotten to this place where we're like, men don't define us. Back then, it was the mindset of relationships are 50-50. That's not true anymore. Relationships, it was never true. It was a wrong sentiment. It was a wrong thing to say. It was a wrong relationship, and he should come in 100% in the relationship, and you guys should be 200% together. No one person should complete another person. Eve did not complete Adam.
Right.
She came from his rib, but she was her own person. She had a job to do, which was to help him, but she was not to be under his foot. There's always this saying, she came from his rib, not from his foot, because she's supposed to be side by side with him, supposed to be your partner. But there are still class of men that believe that women should be under them, that women should, they want to be babied. There are a lot of men these days that want to be babied. That's why no problem with a woman proposing. You should have a problem with that. You should have a problem with that. No problem with a woman like women, we should not be chasing you. I was watching something over the weekend, a television show, Love and Hunts Point, I think it's called, on OWN. And the girl surprised the guy that she was dating. I think they were engaged, with a wedding at a baseball field. Yeah. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. So there is something to say to, there is, why men are not having to do things, because
Yeah. And that the fact that they're comfortable with that is the problem. And I feel like there's still a group of men that are like, what we would consider traditional, like, no, they want to pursue because that's what they are naturally built to do,
yeah,
to be hunters.
right,
Um, but there are a group of
right,
a
like
new
the
wave,
lion.
a new wave of men that are just like, you got it, babe. let me
Yeah,
follow
I don't, and I don't like that.
and that just will never
I
be
don't like that.
that way.
No, me neither. I have this thing. So I have this thing that if I think I'm smarter than you, I can't date you.
Yeah.
And I'm smart. It's
Mhm.
not that I'm dumbing you myself down,
Yeah.
but it's like I need to know that you can challenge me. You
Yeah.
got to be able to challenge me, to
I don't
make
like
me.
him too much smarter than me though. I'm not gonna lie.
He can be smarter than me. I don't mind him being smarter than me.
Just
He
not
can
too
be
much.
smarter than me, but he can't talk to me like he's smarter than me. You know how some people, they
Right.
talk to you like they're
Like
smarter than you,
condescending. Yeah.
and they're condescending. No, 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 no. You could be, maybe you got straight A's and maybe I got, B's or whatever, but right now I'm getting A's and A pluses, so we're gonna have to
Okay.
see.
Okay.
Anyway, but it's just something about, like, or even if you don't have like common sense, like that kind of thing too. If you don't have street smarts, if you don't, like, it's very hard for me
Yeah.
to connect with you. Like, I will just demolish you in an argument because I love to argue. I do. I'm a good, I probably should have been a lawyer. Like, I am very factual in my arguments. Um, and so anyway, it's not a good thing, but it is part of the thing that I do. But in a man, when I'm dating someone or I have a man and he can't stand, or he's passive,
Yeah. It's not gonna work.
I can't respect you, bro. And if I can't respect you, I can't be with you. And that's one of the things in the Bible, like that book, Love and Respect. That's the thing. In that book, Love and Respect, I read it as a single woman, even though it's meant for married people or whatever. But I think single people should read it, learn something from it. But it talks about in the scripture that, women are to be loved. That's what God told the men, the husbands, love your wives, and
Mm-hmm.
women, respect your husbands. That's the scripture. We are to respect them. A man's ego, a man's, what makes his shoulders puff up and his chest puff out is when you respect him. They're big on respect, men.
That's why they get so upset when they feel
That's
disrespected.
why they get
That's
so
why,
upset.
because a lot of women get so excited when a man stands up for them. It don't got nothing to do with you, baby girl. Like, it's his ego and his respect. He feels disrespected. You mess with his woman, he feels disrespected, and so therefore he has to stand up for you. It ain't
But
got
it's that natural thing that you talked about earlier, right? It's that natural part of his his I don't know, character, or way of, like, men are supposed to be hunters,
mm-hmm.
right? Lions, you know, king of the jungle kind of thing. You know what I mean? Even though when you learn, I think the lioness are the ones that go out and get the food. It's the girl. She goes and gets the food,
Mm-hmm.
not him so much. But anyway, it's just part of that, like, I want to be chased. I want, you to open my car door for me. I want you to, want to want me to respect you. So then when you speak to me with respect, or you speak to me in that loving way that makes me respect you,
Mm-hmm.
you know. But if you start doing other things, and as women, we've gotten it so wrong. We want them to love the way we love.
Yeah.
And it's not, that's not how they're built. They're not built for that. That's not how they were. It's not programmed in them that way. And I think it's really important that, as anyone in any relationship, I think I've said it before, the 5 love languages, you got to know your 5 love languages. Know your 5 love languages. And then when you meet someone, you need to ask them, do you know your 5 love languages? Like, how do I need to show up for you? Because it's different for me. And that sometimes is a part of the communication era that happens. It's like, So somebody was telling me once, like, oh, she wanted him to say something somebody was like, he wanted to call to to dissolve an argument, and she was fine with being on text, and he wasn't, and she got mad at him because he didn't want to
He wanted to
have,
meet her face to face to resolve
yeah, and she didn't want, she was like, no, and I'm like,
just
how do
handle
you
it
get mad?
now. Yeah.
Like, so we have to learn how to come forward in our relationships when we're meeting people. Like, what are right now, if I meet you, like, I'm letting you know, like, these are the things. I have no time to give benefits of the doubt anymore. That whole era is gone. Like, I am not waiting around for anyone anymore. I'm recognizing my signs, like you said about that heart thing, checking with your heart, making sure that if you're hitting me here, I'm acknowledging, yeah, you just hit something. Okay, so let me figure this out. Oh, what is it? Oh, is it that? Okay, next.
Right.
So even with the person that came to me, oh, can we start? No, because I don't feel like I shouldn't have to tell you those things.
Right.
There's some things.
What else am I gonna have to tell you?
Right. There are some things, I think I shared with one of my girlfriends, like, when you're meeting people, you have to learn how to communicate, but there's communication 100, and then there's 101. Communication 100 is the basic levels of communication. That 101 maybe is a little bit deeper, maybe it's a little bit more, pronounced or, personal or whatever, but that 100 level, like, everybody knows how to say A, B, C, D, E, F. It's like, I don't have to tell you that D comes before E. Sing the song. You know when it comes, So in that instance, that's why I was like, no. It's just basic. It's just basic. We're in this day and age where, yes, you feel like you're being catfished, you have an iPhone. Or tell me you want to FaceTime.
Yeah.
So I'm just like, I'm just not going to date right
now. Yeah, I get it. And, I think that we started out talking about communication, but all of this is a part of that, like dating and like communicating with yourself, learning how to communicate what you're feeling, learning to do the inner work on yourself in order to be ready for a relationship is so key, and it's so important. I think a lot of people skip that step and end up in unhappy relationships. I think there's a lot more unhappy relationships than what we see. And what is showcased on the Instagram and on social media.
That's on that website called what's that what's that ratchet website that they have? World Star. That's on World Star.
Yeah.
It's not on Instagram. I'm not on that one, but I've heard about that website. And yes, no one is posting on Instagram. No one is posting that stuff. But on that World Star, you find all kinds of craziness on that website.
So I encourage everyone to do the work on yourself. And even if you are already in a relationship or you are married, like, still continue to do work on yourself and with each other, to just make your relationship. You're constantly growing, you're constantly changing, and you might not be the person that you were when you got married. So you have to be able to, like, figure out what that is and learn to articulate that, because that can be a shocker for the other person, and that's a whole nother conversation. But
that's a whole other conversation. That might be hard, because I have read somewhere with someone, like, how do you in relationship and you're evolving and you're growing and that person is not, like,
or they just want you to stay the person that they fell in love with, and it's like, I'm not that person.
I'm not that person. Like, I shared that with one of my friends, like, saying, like, friends would say, like, oh, you've changed. Yeah, I should change. And if I didn't, there's a problem. There's a problem. I should not be the same, because the grass is not the grass that's out there today is not the grass that's going to be out there in the spring of next year. It's going to be new grass. So when the seasons change, I mean, we should be changing. We should be constantly changing and growing. And if you're not, you need to check your pulse, because you're not dead. So it means you need to do some work.
Yeah.
And it's not a bad thing to do the work. I think that's the thing too. I want people, there's such a stigma about
Yeah,
doing the work.
it is.
It's so much better to do the work now than later on when like your hand is forced to do the
Yeah.
work. You
It's
know what I'm
really
saying?
just learning yourself, there's
Yeah.
really no harm in learning yourself and learning like what your triggers are and learning why you respond to things a certain way. And because a lot of the time when you're just living your life, you don't recognize those things. And then you end up in a relationship and those things come to a head. But if you are able to address them alone and on your own, with the help of someone else, then you can avoid a lot of drama later.
Yeah.
So I think
I
it's
mean,
so,
it's
so
important
important.
to do the work, like you said, like, it's the conditioning part.
Yeah.
We're so conditioned to just do things this way. But have you ever asked? You and I had this conversation, I think it was last week, we were talking about finances. And we're
Mhm.
talking about like, buying the Louis Vuittons and the Gucci's or whatever. And it's like, well, why do I want that bag?
Yeah.
What is it?
Mhm.
Just asking like, is it because, and you said like, you're seeing more stuff on social media now,
Mhm.
and is it because of that now I'm seeing it more that I feel like I need to, but when you take a step back, and you even said it early, when you're doing that heart thing and you just checking with yourself, asking yourself, why do I do that? Or why do I believe I don't want to get married? Is that a true statement?
Yeah.
Is that a true belief of mine? Or was I conditioned at some point and just took on this
Mhm.
belief, which is not true and it's actually a lie, but I need to now do the work to undo that, and it's like you said, like when you go into further relationships, you're better for it. So you don't get a rise out of yourself when someone triggers you, because that's your trigger.
Right.
Like me, someone calls me the B, that does not do anything for me. It makes me laugh because I've conditioned myself to know that, are you trying to hurt my feelings? Because that won't hurt my feelings. I know what will get to me, And so it's like when you know your triggers and or your wounds, right? You know where you've been hurt and what that felt like, so that when you're getting into a situation and you're like, oh, I could feel like this could be like a little bit like what I felt before. And so
Mhm.
you make precautions and you put up boundaries. That's another thing in relationships. It's okay to have boundaries, but not walls where you just occlude yourself off from feeling,
Mhm.
you know. So this relationship topic stuff with can go so many ways.
So many ways, and
So
we can
long.
talk on and on and on.
Yeah,
So like you said, do the work, get
do
to
the
the
work,
root
people.
of your issues so that you can have a healthy relationship, and it can be a beautiful thing when
Yeah.
you wait for what is right and when you are ready. Okay, so that's
Right,
what
when
you gotta
you
do.
are ready, when God says you're ready, not even when you're ready, because sometimes we want to think that we're ready, and God's like, go sit down,
Mhm.
go
Plant several seeds.
sit down.
Yeah.
Okay. When I say for you to get up, is when you get up. I don't know if you remember playing that game, Duck, Duck, Goose,
Mhm.
but there always would be one kid that would want to get up when that person did not even come and say goose.
Right.
There's that one kid that just wants to get
What's the
up,
run?
just wants to run. It's like, no,
Aimlessly, and that's what you're
sit
doing.
down.
You're running
Right.
aimlessly
You're
with
running
these
aimlessly.
with
And
these folks that are
God
not
didn't
for
tag you.
you.
Right. You're wasting all this energy and you're wasting, I mean, God is the number one person in regards to recycling. This recycling program started way back in the Bible with God, but why waste your time
Right.
when you could be using it on yourself
Yeah.
and your relationship with God? That's the thing. Honestly, when you're in a relationship, God kind of takes a little back seat sometimes. You know,
Mhm. Oh yeah.
you're putting in all this time with this other person.
Mhm.
And, he's like, I'm not trying to, you're not ready.
Especially if you're not equally yoked.
Especially if you're not equally yoked, So
Mm.
just do the work, learn the 5 love languages. If you haven't, take the test, go online, Google it, and you can take the test for free, read about it, and learn about you, and
Mm-hmm.
love yourself.
Love yourself. We might call this that. Love yourself.
Love yourself first, right? The scripture says, you have to love your neighbor as you love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
So how can you love your neighbor more than you love yourself? You have to love yourself first before you can go love your neighbor,
Mm-hmm.
you know? So love yourself first.
Love yourself first, folks. And
And ladies, hold these men accountable. Hold these men accountable. Do not allow them to jibber jab you some stuff.
don't
Do it.
let your yearning for love
Outweigh.
cause you to just accept any old type of behavior, cause you to just accept things that you know deep down in your heart aren't right. Like when you get that women's instinct that something ain't right,
Yeah,
listen when someone shows you who they are, believe them, okay?
absolutely.
Because you are going to go through heartache, you're going to go through all of this unnecessary drama that you could have avoided if you just paid attention to that voice. But you want to be in love, but you want to have somebody, you're tired of being lonely, girl. You can do battle by yourself, okay? Or guy, because there's some women
Get
out
you a
there that
teddy bear. Get you a teddy bear and just get
know
some. Okay,
you
that's all
go
you.
there
If
you go
you don't need to be alone, like maybe buy a dog or something,
there you
like
go
learn,
cuddle with your puppy.
go adopt a puppy or a cat or something. But it's cheaper that way, and they're more loyal. They're more loyal than
Exactly. That's so true. I
than
love
what's
it.
out
I love
there.
it. This is
I
such a
know
good.
men, I just want to say, I know men might think we're bashing. We're not bashing you, men. We just want you to do better. So if you could do better, we would definitely want to
That's what I was
celebrate.
saying. And for men too, because there's some trifling women out there. There's some women that
There
ain't.
are, there are, there
So
are.
I say the same thing to you guys. Know your worth, men. Women know your
There
worth.
were.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Do
that's
the
all.
work.
And do the work. Do the work. Thank you guys as always for listening. Go to our Amazon Buckeye Podcast. Order your journals. Lillian's
Yeah,
got
we got a new one, the gratitude
gratitude
journal.
journal. I've got these here. We've got planners. We've got the whole nine coloring books. So make sure you go and support the podcast, but also support yourself and your journey to unpacking who you are and getting to know who you are.
Amen. I just want to say the gratitude journal is different than the other journals. The gratitude journal actually has promptings and questions. And so it helps you to think about some things in
We're
regards
talking
to
about
gratitude.
doing the work. That's doing the work. We're
That's
making it
the
easy
work.
for you. A lot of the time you don't know where to begin. That's where to start. You and God just having a conversation, and these promptings, these tools help you to like start the conversation. Sometimes you just don't know where to start. This is where to start. So go to our website, buckeyepodcast.com. You can see everything there. Follow us, Buckeye Pod, on all social media. I'm
Yep.
Renée Nicole.
I'm Lillian.
Thank you guys as always for listening. Have a great week.
Ciao.